The Florida Gators should shuffle around their secondary, once again moving Trikweze Bridges.
You are Locked On Gators, your daily podcast on the Florida Gators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Locked On Gators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. Every day we are available daily and free wherever you listen to the podcast and on YouTube. Happy Wednesday. I am Brandon Olsen. Find me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work with New York Giants on SI. Today's episode of Locked On Gators is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. And usually we talk about what depth chart changes we should see for the Florida Gators, even though Billy Napier no longer puts out a formal depth chart. We still talk about it, and you're still going to see, hey, this guy's starting this week, and things will change there regardless of a formal depth chart coming out. So that's why we still talk about it here. Usually we poke at multiple positions. Today, we're talking about a position group, specifically the secondary, because I do think that the Florida Gators need to make some changes there, most notably involving Trikweze Bridges, Trikweze Bridges played corner at Oregon for a few years, came to Florida, and moved to safety. And by the way, that's what he was recruited as initially out of high school, was a safety. Then he went to Oregon, moved to corner because he needed to. Moved to safety here, injuries piled up, and he moved back to corner temporarily. Corner this week against LSU should be Cormani McClain on the outside on one side, and Dijon Johnson on the opposite side, or it should be Cormani McClain on one side and either Jameer Grimsley or Teddy Foster as the other corner opposite Cormani McClain. And I do think that it's decently, but by the way, Jameer Grimsley did play against Texas. I do think that it's decently likely, we'll say, that you see Dijon Johnson opposite Cormani McClain. Last week, we saw Trikweze Bridges starting at one of the corner spots, Cormani McClain starting at the other corner spot, and Dijon Johnson rotating in with Cormani McClain while Trikweze Bridges played every snap in the entire game. He moved around a little bit, but he spent, I think, 45 of the 50 snaps at corner. And so I think this week it's more likely that you see Cormani and Dijon at corner, and I think that's what you need. Dijon Johnson, again, last week was a game time decision prior to the game, obviously, was a game time decision. And then, again, he was cleared to play. He did play. He rotated in. I would like to think that with another week between those, that he should be full go this time around. And I will say that I think you really need to push Trikweze to safety here. And I don't mean this to be insulting to Bridges at all. He's much better suited to play safety than corner. And it was clear watching him last week. And I don't fault him for that. I said last week, I don't fault Trikweze or Cormani for not playing well last week. Bridges got cooked off the line by Isaiah Bond multiple times. And that's going to happen when you have a guy that moved to safety for a reason going to corner. He was there being a good teammate. He was there moving positions so that his team would be in a better position to win. I don't fault him for not playing well. I think he's much better suited to play safety. And then, of course, we have to go back to safety play last week was effing abysmal. We'll say that. Effing abysmal. Jordan Castell played what I think might be his worst game as a Florida Gator against Texas. Aaron Gates played what I think might be his worst game as a Florida Gator against Texas. Bryce Thornton played what might be his worst game as a Florida Gator against Texas. Up there with Tennessee earlier this year. He didn't play well in that game either. Which, again, young, you're expecting consistency with youth. But safety play last week was abysmal. Okay. And it was really bad. And it was noticeable to communication breakdowns in coverage, communication breakdowns across the board. It was very clear that from the eyes of the defense at safety down, it wasn't working in the secondary. Okay. This week, move Trikweze Bridges back to safety. Because it's kind of a two-pronged approach there. One, we know he's better, right? We know Trikweze Bridges is better at safety than corner. Again, because he was at Oregon as a corner and not playing. Came here, moved back to safety, his original position, has been playing pretty damn well this year. And then again, played corner last week because he needed to. And he's been doing that since the Georgia game. He moved down to corner because of all those injuries. Trikweze Bridges is not good at corner. Okay. We just know that. Okay. And again, I'm not knocking him for that. He's a good safety. He's just not a corner. It's out of position, right? So Trikweze Bridges is not good at corner. Jameer Grimsley or Teddy Foster might not be good there either. But even though Jameer Grimsley and Teddy Foster might not be good at corner, one, they're young. The experience reps will help them for the rest of this year and next year. So giving them as many reps as possible is beneficial for them. Two, we're expecting Dijon Johnson to be more ready this week than he was last week. And so when we talk about the snap count there, it should be Cormani and Dijon. And then we're talking about Jameer Grimsley or Teddy Foster rotating in depth pieces. Also, I don't even know if we're going to see Jakeem Jackson for the rest of this year. He wasn't playing well at the start of the year, got hurt in week 2, and we haven't seen him since. So I don't even know if he's going to come back. But if he does, that'd be a welcome addition. He'd immediately be in the rotation. Don't think we're going to see Devin Moore again. We'll see about that one. But if you have, let's say your 4 corners are Cormani McClain, Dijon Johnson, Jameer Grimsley, and Teddy Foster, they might not be great, right? Cormani hasn't been great so far, but again, my expectations for him at the start of the season were for him to not play. So for a guy that I said, hey, he shouldn't play this year, I respect next man up. I do. But at the same time, it's next man up, not next man up and perform the exact same level that you were playing at before, that the person ahead of you was playing at before. You were their backup for a reason. You might say, hey, like as a coach, you might say, hey, next man up, and we're running our team the same way because he's coached to do this and he knows to do this. He might not do it as well, but he's coached to do it. He knows how to do it. Sure. But I don't fault Cormani for not playing well. Dijon Johnson's played pretty well. I don't fault Jameer Grimsley for not playing well. I don't fault Trikweze Bridges for not playing well. But if we can look at the group and say, we know that we're probably going to see not great cornerback play, at least moving Trikweze Bridges to safety, you know you're going to have at least a little bit of good safety play. You don't know what you're going to get from Jordan Castell, because don't forget, last year, this is also the same time he hit a wall hard as a freshman. He could just be the kind of guy that's going to hit a wall here, which is something that NFL teams are going to care about, by the way, in the future. Just if you can't play 12 games without hitting a hardcore wall, it's going to be real interesting to see how you do it with 17 in the NFL. But at least Trikweze at safety means that you're going to have a good safety. Have him as a good safety. Have Aaron Gates, Sharif Denson in the slot. Also, I will say this. Aaron Gates didn't play well, but Aaron Gates was also playing more of a safety role than we've ever seen him play. Okay, he was playing safety a good bit. Like that's just what it is. Sharif Denson would come in at the slot, and Aaron Gates would usually go back to safety there. So it's not like I'm like, oh, he's just horrible. He had a bad game, but he also was doing things that he's not used to doing normally. And so again, you have Gates and Denson in the slot. I don't care who's starting. They're both really good. You have your corner set up. You move Trikweze back to safety, and you at least raise the floor and the ceiling of your defense a little bit more. And the thing that you have to do as a coaching staff right now is give yourself every possible opportunity to win a game. We're about to be joined by Hayden Hansen, Florida Gators starting tight end, next on Locked On Gators. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. NBA season is here. They're finally figuring things out. I know at the beginning a lot of teams were looking horrendous, but teams are finally figuring things out. My New York Knicks have finally figured some things out. Still a long way to go there. But Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. Joining me now for Locked On Gators is Hayden Hansen, Florida Gators starting tight end, and we're just going to rip the Band-Aid off here. Texas Longhorns game obviously was not a fun one to watch. I'd imagine it wasn't a fun one to be a part of. Take me through that game from the player perspective.
Yeah, man, it was a complete embarrassment. All three phases of the team couldn't get anything going on either side of the ball. Just wasn't to the standard of our play. It doesn't matter who we had out, who we had banged up. You got to go out there and you got to execute at the highest level, and that goes to everybody, including myself. You just got to do a lot of self-reflecting and get back out there and have a short-term memory.
Yeah, what kind of takeaways are there for you guys, if any? Because I know, like you mentioned, it doesn't matter who you have out, still got to go out there and execute. But there were indeed a lot of players. I mean, it was so bad defensively that Bridges moved from safety to corner. Offensively, of course, down to QB3. 2 running backs out, 2 of the top 3 leading receivers out. There was a lot to it. So really, what can you take away from a game like that?
Yeah, at the end of the day, you just have to look at the guys that were put in those positions and see who's staying, and how they can improve. And you have to look at what went wrong. You turn the ball over 4 times in the first half. It's hard to beat anybody, regardless of who you have on the team, So we just got to take care of the ball better. And like I said, the last podcast, we needed to raise our level of play for Hayden. Obviously, we didn't do that. So just got to go back to the drawing board and get it done this week.
Yeah, and it was a 49-17 game there. There was 41-17. There's been a few big losses, multi-score losses this season, back-to-back rough losses. Georgia, of course, was 2-score, but that game was closer than the score indicates because of the late scores. But what is a team mentality like in the locker room now, where it feels like every loss has been heartbreaking, at least from a fan base perspective?
Yeah, obviously no one wants to have that taste in their mouth, but the best way is just to go out here and beat LSU in the swamp, turn around and win out. Just got to keep shooting for the stars. We had a Marine there today. Napier brings in a veteran every day this week, and he had a pretty good message. He said that one of the things he learned in the Marine Corps was you're only remembered for your last 10 minutes. And he was like, obviously, it doesn't mean literally someone times your last 10 minutes. He said you're always remembered how you finish. So obviously this season hasn't been up to the standard that what we thought it was going to be, but we go out here and win a bowl game. We'll be remembered a little better than how we are right now. So.
Yeah, that was something that I was actually going to ask about, because Billy Napier mentioned that this week with Veterans Day, every day they bring in someone from a different branch or a veteran from a different area to talk to the team. Can you give us a bit of insight into what those speeches have been like so far? Obviously, we're recording this on Tuesday night. It's not like you guys are through the speeches, but just what those have been like so far.
Yeah, so the guy today was kind of what we just touched on. He was the Marine, 24-year career. Had a lot to say, told us the main 3 takeaways he had. Yesterday was a guy in the Army who was stationed. I think he said he was stationed in Korea, Japan, Afghanistan, and he retires this March. He had his whole family up there. Just took us through his journey, and how he's a big fan of the team. So it's just really cool hearing those guys' perspectives, because those are the most selfless, hardworking guys. They chose a career path to just straight sacrifice. The guy today was like, I was in Afghanistan in the corner in the war zone trying to signal in for my daughter's first birthday. I'm like, that's crazy, man.
Yeah, it's an incredible sacrifice. I wanted to say insane, and I was like, that's not the right word to use there, but an incredible sacrifice there. And just to get back to a football point of things, where I know people always try to tie football and military back in terms of discipline and selflessness there. What was it like for you this past weekend? Because we talked about it last week. Game is in Texas. Got to play in your home state. Obviously, game didn't go the way you anticipated or the way we anticipated, but I'd imagine regardless of the results, it had to be at least pretty cool to be able to play in front of, like I told you right before we started recording, based on the pictures that came out, you had a staff about Billy Napier's army there, and just family and friends. So just what was that like to be able to play in front of everybody?
Yeah, I mean, it was awesome, man. I mean, hugged a lot of necks after the game. I haven't seen a lot of those guys in a while. Even some of my guys from A&M came down. It was a good time. Obviously, yeah, I had to kind of soak it all out to the game and, put it up to the side because those people all made time out of their day, spent money to come up there, so I had to, put this aside for a minute, put a smile on my face, go thank everyone for coming. But yeah, I wish we could have performed better for them, but it's always a blessing having that many people there for you.
Is Texas closer to Weatherford than Texas A&M?
It's about even. A&M's about 3 hours. Austin's about 3.5. So
okay, so next year, assuming obviously we're not looking that far into the future, but A&M hopefully have an army out there for that one as well. Hopefully go more in your favor there. But talking about next year, last Thursday, Florida Gators athletic director Scott Strickland put out the statement that we're rolling with Billy. Billy's our guy. From the locker room perspective, from being a player on that team with Billy Napier, now getting the job security that has been, I mean, I feel like it's been talked about at this point for basically a year with Billy Napier. What is that like as a player, where obviously I know that social media, anybody, any fan base can talk about Billy Napier and how they feel, but I think one thing you can't deny about this team is that they've been playing hard and that they're still bought in with Billy. So just as a player to get that, I guess we'll say, clarification that we're sticking with Billy as a program, what's that like for you?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think either way, people were just wanting a for sure answer, especially on the team, just because think about what they're going to do after the season's over and stuff. So, I mean, knowing that he's coming back, I think makes a lot of guys happy, and gives them a little stability, knowing they can stay here and stuff like that. So I think the sooner he came out with that, the better. So
get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place, which, by the way, if you like live betting, Georgia Tech was plus money even when leading late in the game against Miami, because Vegas was like, hey, Miami comes back a lot. If you're a Miami Dolphins fan, Miami was plus money against the Rams on Monday Night Football, even after the Dolphins were leading in the second half, because they figured, hey, the Rams are going to be better, right? Maybe not, but visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Looking forward to this week. Before we talk about LSU itself, just what's practice been like this week, where potentially DJ Lagway coming back for you guys this weekend?
Yeah, I mean, it's awesome. I mean, he's been practicing a little bit here and there, and it's exciting to see him. It's exciting to see him come back. But I mean, at the end of the day, like I said earlier, it doesn't really matter who's on the field. We just gotta go out there and just start dominating. It gets to a point where it gets old. I mean, it's been a minute since we've gotten embarrassed like this, but I mean, it's a harsh reminder of the Miami game and stuff like that. And you just don't want to go down that path again. So we got to fight tooth and nail to get out of this slump and go out swinging.
Yeah, what's the coach, I guess, message been, where, like you said, it's been a while since you've been punched in the mouth like this. So what's the coach messaging been like after that Texas game?
I mean, it was kind of the execution. He turned the ball over 4 times in the first half, putting the defense in bad spots. It just comes down to a lot of things, and I think some coaches felt like a lot of guys, when it didn't go well early, checked out. They kind of fell back on the crutch of, oh, we're down people, it's that, but you can't do that, at the end of the day. And we know that, and we obviously learned our lesson, so we just got to keep going forward.
And for you, it's interesting. I don't think many people have back-to-back weeks where they have some kind of personal tie to a game. But of course, last week, Texas, this week, LSU. If I'm not mistaken, you grew up an LSU fan. And so just what's that like? What do you look forward to most with this game where you play against the team that you grew up as a fan of?
Yeah, so nothing will top last year, my first ever time playing. And in Death Valley, I was a little happy kid, Had a pretty good receiving game too. So, I hope I can get the ball a little bit here in this game. I think it's been 3 or 4 straight games I haven't got a target, So hopefully that kind of comes back this game, I think there's definitely chances there. So we'll see.
Yeah, and I know you can't speak for anybody else, but if I'm not mistaken, there's another person in the tight end room that has some kind of tie to LSU. If I'm not mistaken, Scott Isaacs is from around the area. Is there anything additional that both of you guys are like, hey, we're both LSU adjacent in this game, looking forward to it, a little bit of extra for you guys?
Yeah, well, surprisingly, Scott's really not that big of an LSU guy. You got to talk to him about that. I'm not sure on the details, but every time it's brought up, he's pretty dismissive of it. So,
no, good. I won't be angry for this one. You mentioned, been a few games since you've gotten a target. Billy Napier said on Monday that it's become a priority of his to get the tight ends more involved in the passing game, which obviously, you can't say what the coaches should or shouldn't do, really. We get that. But it made me think of how we've talked about running backs before, where running backs may say, hey, I like to run at a duo counter. Like they have a preference. Is there a way where you kind of look at it and you're like, I want to run digs, corners up the seam? Is there anything where if the coaching staff were to come to you and say, hey, we want to get tight ends involved, how do you want to be involved? Like what would your answer be then?
I'd say anything, man. Like anything at this point, I'll do anything to get that ball. I just think obviously the style I play action is always a big thing, even sticking me out wide on a corner, a mismatch in the size, just throw a body catch. It's just anything, I think someone sent me a stat the other day. I think I'm I think it was actually might have been you, top 4 in first down conversion or something like that. Like, I just feel like when I get the ball, I do move the chains, and that's just been kind of the frustrating part these last couple of games. But, regardless, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to block my tail off for this team and get those running backs a pretty nice lane to run through. So,
yeah, and I will continue to say what I've been saying for a couple of years now. Of he's 6'7", 6'8", red zone, just throw it up and just let him go get it. Yeah. I'm just saying it sounds like a sound approach to me, but they get paid a hell of a lot more money than I do to handle that stuff. And before we let you go, we like to go away from football for a second. And I'm just curious your opinion. I don't know if you saw, but I saw it earlier today when just scrolling. Johnny Bones Jones said that he's willing to fight Alex Pereira for a not actual title, but a badass mother, title there. Which, by the way, it's wild that this is now year 3 of you coming on this show every week during the season. And John Jones still hasn't had a fight in that entire time. It's just no fight the entire time. So I was just curious of your opinion of John Jones saying, hey, like I'd fight Alex Pereira for not even a UFC title, but just a bad, we'll say Mamma Jamma title.
Yeah, I think it's frustrating because I know he's going to run through Stipe probably in the first round, which he should. But I think he's ducking Aspinall. I think Aspinall would beat him. But I also understand on the flip side, the legacy he's created, he doesn't want to put it up in the air. I think he wants to beat Stipe, who's like the greatest heavyweight of all time. Call it quits. Maybe go pick on a light heavyweight and Alex Pereira and knock him out. But I think he's going to do everything in his power to avoid Aspinall because I don't think that would be a good turnout.
Yeah, no, I think it's clear of that. Like, I know that he's trying to, in the clip that I saw where he was just like, oh, there was no need for an interim anyway. We shouldn't have did that anyway. You should have just waited for me to come back. That whole kind of spiel where it's like, it felt like he was trying to sell everybody on I'm not doing this to duck anyone. I'm doing this out of principle that I shouldn't have to do this because there shouldn't be an interim.
Yeah, he's definitely he's just taking the smart approach for his legacy. It's hard to blame him, but I think we all know what would happen. So.
Yeah. Long term, people are going to say, look at the record and see what they see and talk about it. But short term, we can say that he's behaving like what he's behaving like. And go ahead, protect the legacy. But for now, I'm going to judge you. Thank you so much, Hayden. This is Hayden Hansen, Florida Gators starting tight end. Catch him every week with your Florida Gators and every week on Locked On Gators. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. Every day we are available daily and free reviews in the podcast and on YouTube. We'll be back tomorrow. Talk more Florida Gators football. It's going to be crossover Thursday with Matt Moscona of Locked On LSU. For Locked On Gators, I'm Brandon Olsen. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work with New York Giants on SI, and I'll see you all next time.